be really funny one day? It would be really funny if we started the show and just played the whole song.
I never get tired of it. Every once in a while I hear it and I go like, that's a great song.
No, I know. It'd just be funny if we just I just had that notion a second ago. I said, just leave it. It's 5 minutes and 5 minutes and 48 seconds. And I just wonder how long people would stay with it before they're like, okay, well, surely Howard or Tim is going to say something. And nope.
Is that like, was there a Beatle album in which, I think it was Abbey Road, you thought it was over, but there's about a 5-minute thing and the needle goes over, then finally another song, which is only like about 30 seconds long.
You know, I don't know that story, but hey, listen, only one of us was a rock reporter, and the other one was making silly jokes in between songs. This, ladies and gentlemen, is Swing Thoughts. Welcome to it. Of course, along with Coach Tim O'Connor, I am golf spiritual leader, and I'm always excited or whatever, chuffed as the English like to say, always when somebody walks up to me and says, hey, GSL, I get it's like a little secret handshake that we all have. It's great to be with you, Tim, as always. You were saying that you had one of your workshops, the Tim O'Connor workshops at historic Greystone Golf Course in the ancient city of Milton, Ontario. The ancient city by the 401 of Milton, Ontario.
Well, I remember when Milton was a wee town.
Oh yeah.
And then it grew like Topsy, as our friends across the ocean would say. Yeah, now it is a city. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I gave a workshop last night, and there's a couple people who you may know. There's a fellow, and I don't know his last name. First name is Manny. He's a retired high school principal.
I know. He's a great guy. He plays at Glencairn. Great guy.
Yeah.
Nice golfer too.
And Kay Luwing, I'm going to massacre I have massacred the pronunciation for the last name. But two people from your club were there last night. And yeah, we had a great time. Matt Robinson, the head pro at Greystone, hosted it. And
yeah, Matty's a good guy. I like him too.
Oh, yeah, totally. And it was a great interactive evening with the folks there. And I like small groups, man, because it lends itself to more sharing. Like people can talk more, but also they can interact with each other. It just works really nicely. So it was a great time. And they seemed excited and pleased, and so it was a great night. And it's always fun to pack up and head out in the car on the way home and just think that was fun, and kind of like nice work if you can get it. I'll just say that.
and so you had two from Glencairn. So when you say a small group, are we talking?
One from Greystone.
That's enough.
Fabian. Yeah, and that is enough. I mean, sure, if the room was more full, fine, but I find it's just like in the band or any other situation, it is what it needs to be, and it'll be all that it can be. Whether you got a room full of in the band you got 20 people or you got 200. Mm-hmm. You give all, and it is everything it should be.
Well, I would tell you, I've mentioned this before, I'm sure, on the show. Maybe we should just stop saying that and we'll just repeat ourselves, and people find that
things we've said before.
But I can tell you that doing stand-up for 20 people versus 200 people is a completely different beast, and it's exponentially harder doing a show for 20 people than it is for 200, and doing a show for, like the big show I did a couple of falls ago now, for 1,000 people is like the easiest. It's so much easier doing it for 1,000 people than doing it for 20. It's because most people wouldn't think that, but it just is.
Is it easier? Is it because because there's more people, there'll be more people who will respond to a joke, or is it that they're in a group and it's a group dynamic and they get caught up in something?
It has to do with the human psychology of self-consciousness. So when there's only 20 people, and I've done shows like Thursday night at Yuck Yucks or Wednesday night, sometimes there'll be shows like showcase shows or whatever, and there might be 12 people on the show, and you're going up and just trying out material. It's not really high stakes, but there's 40 people in the audience, and it's hard because when you're part of a smaller group, you are more self-conscious about hearing your laugh out loud because your laughing is an endorsement of what that person is saying, basically. So when you have 1,000 people, you're part of an anonymous, glob of humanity. So you can laugh out loud, and nobody can. There's no distinguishing your response from others around you, because that's what it is. Because if there's 30 people in the audience, and you say something that might be, whatever, basically by your laughter, you're endorsing that person's opinion, and you may be self-conscious about that.
Yeah, that's really cool. You know what it makes me think about? So, in my last Substack, I wrote about Brian Wilson, the Beach Boys passing, and Sly
Yeah.
Stone, and one of the greatest live performances in history is Sly and the Family Stone at Woodstock, and it was such a great performance that they even ran Sly's stage patter, like the things he was saying to the audience, and it was so memorable. My brother Sean and I mimic these lines all the time. He talks, he ends the line, and he goes, etc., etc. Wow. But the one that to speak to what you were talking about, what Sly wanted to do was do a sing along, and it was a prelude to the song "High." I want to take you higher. So
Yes.
here's what he goes. He's talking about that some people will feel self-conscious and they won't want to do it because they think it's old-fashioned. And I just love the line. He goes, "If we can somehow get around it and feel there's enough people to make up for it." I mean, he goes on and on, but it just speaks to that self-consciousness.
And
So
that's what it
it's
is.
just,
Well,
yeah.
and then so getting back to doing a seminar, is it possible for the? I can't believe it. Like for this, literally for the second week in a row.
You forgot to press go.
Well, because what I do is I press record, or I press the song, and thinking I'm hitting record at the same time. But I'm just wondering if we should just get the recording off your
Zoom.
Zoom. Yeah.
Sure. Let's do that.
Yeah. Let's just keep going.
Yeah.
You
Okay.
know what I'll do? I'll start recording now, so
Okay.
that I have that part. But all you have to do is I'll show you after how to get it off the Zoom. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
To turn it
Okay.
into an MP3.
Yep.
Anyway, yes, when you're in a group of 3 people at a seminar or one of your what do you call them, seminars?
Workshops.
Are people more or less reticent to share their golf? It's almost like an AA meeting, but it's like are more self-conscious about sharing their golf stories and why they're there?
I find less so, but that's also part of the art of facilitation is asking the right questions. So I started with Matt. So Matt's all ready to go. He's excited to be there. Even he can learn. So he's participating. So you always get asked, you ask the most sort of valuable person in the room to go first. And when they start to share things, and maybe they share some things that other people went, wow, he's actually said that out loud for other people. It gives them permission to share with them because, oh, well, if he can do that, I can do that. So that's if you have a group of people who are very shy, well, you're going to struggle. But I usually find that these things are really good.
Well, golfers, I think, only need, I was going to say, and maybe this podcast has helped. At least it's helped some of the people that I encounter by being open and vulnerable and honest about how we feel,
Yeah.
especially the hard, dark parts of the game. You know,
Yeah,
because there are,
totally.
unlike a lot of different sports. I mean, this as we've asked before, like do bowlers sit around and do they go to bowling workshops and talk about how bowling's affecting? How bowling sometimes makes them want to cry.
I
or
got in my car and I
yeah,
punched the
punch the
dashboard.
windshield.
I'm
Like if
quitting
I,
bowling. I'm
yeah,
quitting
I'm quitting.
bowling.
This is it for me.
I rip
Yeah,
off my bowling shirt, throw it
all
on
the
the
work I've
highway.
done in my on my bowling motion, or in my case, I'm tired of throwing balls down the thing into other people's alleys. But I think
I'll
once
just never
people,
make it. I'm a loser.
that's right, I'll never get to scratch bowl or whatever. But I think that golfers, once they hear other golfers are going through and go through all the ups and downs of the game, I think it would, I would imagine in a workshop situation that you would get people to, they're there to learn, but they're also there to recognize. And I think they, once they recognize that, everyone feels the things about the game that we all feel. I know there's a
Yeah.
more articulate way.
Well, it's a totally unique situation because here for once they actually have permission to share the stuff that they never share. I mean, you don't sit around on the patio with a bunch of guys after a round. I don't even think, the ladies finish and go like, oh, I just in that front nine, I just lost my self-confidence. It just dripped away. And
That's
it's kind
right.
of like my relationship with Larry. I just don't know what's happening anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, golfers have all these thoughts, but you don't share them on the patio. But we have them about ourselves and our beliefs and crap. But when you give people permission, I remember first time I went on a Mankind Project weekend. Um, this is like 25 years ago. I go there. I don't know a soul. So I'm among about 30 guys. All of us, Brand, are new to this work, and a lot of it is about what we're talking about, permission to share what's going on. And I just remember being there for about 3 hours on the first night, and I went, wow, I am so fucked up. And so is everyone else.
Yeah.
It was that realization that it was like, oh, wow, cool. I mean, I'm in good company here.
Yeah.
And it's, and now, like, why not share what goes on? Because the standard thing we have, particularly as men, is fear that will be looked upon as weak or feminine, or, oh, can't you take care of yourself, young man? All the stupid fucking nonsense that men go through, in which we put up the walls.
Well, when we first started this, you and I bonded over these kind of conversations, 10 years ago now. But when we first started in the shows, and I would talk about how things have been for me, or whatever, we're both being vulnerable. I wondered if other guys felt that way. I suspected they did, because I would have the odd friend that would have a conversation like we're having. But I would run into guys and they would be like, I would think, oh, well, they probably don't think like this. But I have now in 10 years realized they all think like this.
Exactly.
They're just not as comfortable talking about it the way we are. But I would also say, as a caveat, I have felt more people have been more comfortable about it as time has gone on. Maybe because they come up to us and me individually and you and have these conversations. But I also see in general, golf psychology is in a different spot than it was even 10 years ago. It's certainly different than when I read Rotella in 1995. But I think men in general, people in society more generally, as far as mental health is concerned, are more comfortable.
Agreed. Yeah, I agree. I still think we have a long, long way to go. I just, here's a judgment. I think the majority of men still faced with the possibility of saying what they actually feel, whether it be sadness or shame or whatever, will just say, hey, they'll do the Bill Burr thing. Men have two emotions: anger. Who the fuck put this there? What the hell's going on? Or the other one is fine.
Yeah.
And this is Bill Burr saying this, that everything else in the middle is gay.
No, I know but yeah, and it's funny because Bill Burr, that's a joke. It's a great Bill Burr joke, but I know he doesn't think that. So here we are, another episode of this program, and I want to talk a little bit about, what did I write down here? I wrote down something about perception. golfers' perception of the state of their game, which I think is a skewed. I think it's a warped vision that we have. You're looking at me quizzically. I'll explain that. Also, the Tim O'Connor. I had a lesson from Tim O'Connor without it actually being Tim O'Connor, but it came through somebody else. And it's something. I'll just get right to it. It's something that it's part of the quiet mind piece, and I think it's in your book as well. The quiet eye, I should say.
Yeah, quiet eye. Yeah,
Quiet eye, and you've talked about this. Is it a Fred Shoemaker thing about the after image of staring at a golf ball while you're putting, and then you putt, and then you stare for the after image on the ground?
yeah. It's called the retinal after image. I got it from Fred.
Right. But the idea of a quiet eye to quiet your mind is definitely an O'Connor thing. And about a week ago, actually a week ago today, I was playing with our friend Al Martin, guy that, as I mentioned a few episodes ago, credited you for saving his golf game a few years ago. So Al has been very interested and has spent the last 5 or 6 months taking part in the Phil Kenyon Online Academy. And he's become a bit of an expert in putting. He's dedicated, the most dedicated guy I know, other than Howard Glassman, in terms of his dedication to getting better at the game and availing himself of information. He's a smart guy, and he's become a smart guy around the world of putting. What he's done is he's just signed up for all these Kenyon courses. So yeah, he and I have talked a lot about putting over the winter and doing some drills and some mechanical stuff. And he's been very complimentary. He said, you've got a great stroke, and all the we've filmed it together, and we can see all the elements of, path and all that stuff are there. But he was watching me, and the first couple of holes we played together last Wednesday, he said, "Man, you really pull the trigger quite quickly." And I said, "Well, it's just part of my routine. I take a last look at the hole, and then I go right away." And he says, Kenyon's done research, and nobody at any level in the pro ranks does that. And I said, "What do you mean?" So they all do the same thing. It's called the 3-second rule. I don't know if that's exactly what it is, but it's a 3-second pause from your last look at the hole to returning your eyes at the ball. And I'm telling y'all, before I tell you how it worked for me, I went and watched some LPGA that night, and I've seen some PGA stuff on the weekend. They all do it. They almost universally do it, Tim. And the ones that don't, or the ones that go at 2 or 2.5, invariably, it's not the same stroke. But for the most part, good players and pros, one last look at the hole, and then they pause. 1, 2, 3. And I can tell you, it's transformative. And this isn't just a little, golf tip. It's a mental hack. Because what it does, to your point in the quiet mind idea, is it does bring a sense of calm to the moment. And I noticed it immediately with me, but I've seen it now in somebody else that I've shared this with, how immediately it calmed the putting stroke down. And I can't tell you, all I know is, I was putting okay before it, but I've putted very well since I started doing that. Comments, thoughts, concerns?
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's so cool. Yeah, I can't remember
Yeah,
the
you look like
woman's
you're
name.
looking something up. So go. What are you
Yeah,
trying to find?
trying to find the woman's name who discovered this. She is a University of Calgary kinesiology uh, instructor. Oh, I'll look up my own blog.
Yeah, do that.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. Her name is Joan Vickers, and she's a kinesiologist at the University of Calgary. And through doing hundreds of studies in all kinds of different sports, from hockey to billiards to darts, and certainly to golf, she discovered that when you have what she calls quiet eyes, it just settles your brain down and allows your brain waves to slow down and for you to really connect with the ball and really put a solid stroke on it, connecting it to the target. Um, and she calls it I forget, it's she refers to it as the gaze. And so here I'm kind of quote my blog here. She says, um, go through your normal putting process of reading the green, set up over the ball, and ensure the center of the club face faces the center of the ball. Allow your eyes to take in the target for a few seconds. Bring your eyes to the ball. Fixate your gaze, quiet eye, on the back of the ball for about 2 seconds. Yeah, have 2 seconds before the backswing. And then contact and maintain your quiet eye on the green, uh, on the back of the ball where it was for half a second.
So I guess Kenyon's taken that, and I can tell you, I counted on a dozen occasions watching golfers on television, and it's 3 seconds. They may go at 2.5, but that putter isn't hitting the ball until 3 seconds for the most part. Some
Yeah.
are a little bit, maybe they're a quarter second on either side, but it's the strangest thing. And I mean, I'm sure that somehow I must have read that blog or it's come up in the show. But when Al told me that last week, and I shared it with my buddy Grant a couple days ago, we were playing Cedarbray, immediately, it's the weirdest thing. Like, and not only are you, I'll tell you what it is. It just gives your body a chance to do what it already knows how to do, which is make a smooth putting motion. But so many of us, myself included, we're still shuffling around, or I'm still not settled at the moment I go to hit it. And where it really shows up, or it has for me at least, is in shorter putts.
Yep.
3, 4, 5 feet, where now that I'm settled, I'm not saying they're all going in, but I am making a better motion almost universally whenever I do this. It's the craziest thing, Timmy.
Yeah. I started to do it. So when did I write this blog? That was in 2022. So that's about 3 years ago. And I had already been doing the retinal after image thing. And my putting's actually been pretty good for the last 3, 4, 5 years. But I think it'd be interesting. So what she was talking about, she says that what happens is that when she calls it a gaze. She doesn't call it staring at the ball. It's kind of a gaze, puts kind of a soft kind of a way to express it. And she says what's happening is that you're giving your brain one thing to focus on at a time. She says you're not susceptible to the usual instructive or narrative thoughts like accelerate or get there. But she also goes on to say that she says one of the key reasons that people struggle with putting is that their eyes are moving all over the place as they prepare to putt and make the stroke. She says, out of anxiety and doubt, their eyes dart back and forth from the ball to the target, and they'll often watch the putter go back. So, quote, when your vision moves around, you pick up feedback that makes its way into the hands and brain, and you overwhelm yourself with information.
Well, that's 10 out of 10. Can you forward that to me? Because I'm going to forward it to Al.
Will do, yeah.
Tim's Substack is available where all your fine Substacks are sold. And you can find out more information at o'connorgolf.ca. I'll tell you what I started doing. So Al showed this to me, I think it might have been the second hole we played. And it was a great day anyway. We had a really fun time. It had rained, so we had an hour delay, and then we went out, and not everyone came back out after the rain delay, so we played in a fivesome.
Yeah,
we played in a fivesome for 16 holes. And,
great.
And it was 5 guys, all good players, and it was just lots of fun and fairways and greens. And I went on. I had a pretty good round. I shot 71. If you like this kind of thing. And I was just rolling the ball. I didn't sink everything I looked at, but I made good. And what you just said is that's why I want to send it to him, because that's what it is. Not that I'm a nervous putter, but like everyone else, whatever my routine is, it's your eyes darting around and not settling. that you're subtly taking in, as she says, you're taking in information that you don't even know you are.
That's correct. Yeah, that's so your brain takes in millions of, we'll call it bits, millions of bits of information. That's why it's really good to, if you are one of those people who takes a practice putt, you take your practice putt not beside the ball, but on the line behind the ball, and you look, and you just look, and your eyes take in all this information that you're not even conscious of. Your brain takes in like, oh, there's a slope there. It's uphill, it's downhill, it's whatever. Um, and your your unconscious, your subconscious brain actually is more correct, is way smarter than you are, and it figures these things out. It's like our friend Dr. Collins from Ireland. He says your body self-organizes. We come back to that one again.
Well, and I can tell you, it was just to kind of segue now into the Tommy Fleetwood putt.
Oh,
You know, poor guy. I didn't
guy,
watch
yeah.
much of it because it was the second round of our senior club championship. But I was watching it at the end when he had that putt to two putt. At that point, it was to two putt to win, but then Bradley sinks the putt. They would have tied.
Yeah.
But it just goes to show you can be one of the best players on the planet, practice, expertise, coaches, all that stuff. But all it takes is an old ball mark, and that knocks your putt offline. Now, he felt terrible, but it wasn't. He didn't make a bad putt.
Yeah, I thought the core problem was the indecision. They had the nine from the fairway, and then at the last second he switches over to wedge, and it's like any high school teacher will tell you, if you do the multiple choice exam, that first one, that's always the one you go with. That's pretty simple stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like a simpleton in saying it, but when you rely more on your instinct, things are just usually better.
Well, and as we learned from our interview years ago with Dr. Joe Parent, who I've been following again
Oh yeah.
on Instagram, bright man, obviously.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But one of the things about in our discussion, we've talked about hitting a ball anyway. But one of the things he said, and I reminded a friend of mine recently that if you have been thinking, I don't know, a 9-iron all along, and then at the last second you go to a wedge, you've also got to give your brain the same amount of time and attention for that new club because it's still thinking we're going to hit the 9 or whatever
right.
whatever you change to. You have to go through your routine again, feeling that club. And I don't think that he gave it as much attention as he should have.
No, it seemed it. I'm not sure if it was, but it seemed kind of rushed,
Right.
and it just felt so terrible for the
But
guy.
the
Oh my
putt, the
God.
point about putting is
Yes, yeah,
that you can do everything right. You can have the quietest mind and eye and gaze, and just because of the weirdness of the sport, it's not on a universal surface. And he deserved to win. I mean, it was great for Keegan Bradley, and what a competitive guy he is. And what are they going to do? Is he going to be a playing captain?
yeah. I don't know. That's a good problem for them to have, I guess. But I don't know how they're gonna they'll solve that one. Maybe in the old days, but now it just seems that they're drilling down on analytics and stuff. And what are they gonna do? Someone with an iPhone jumps on the 17th tee with him, as he prepares, to finish off his match as they get ready to organize the afternoon matches. Don't know. Don't know. It just
Yeah,
seems
it's a
kind
lot
of
of
weird.
responsibility.
Yeah.
I
I
mean,
wanna talk-
he deserves to be on the team based on where he's ranked.
Oh yeah. Well, didn't he win late last year too?
He did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
He
mean,
would
he's a
I
hell of a
don't have it in
player.
front of me, but he would have enough points, I think, right now to get on the team.
Yeah. And I gotta think he's the type of guy you want on the team. He's like a Justin Thomas. He's full of fire and competitiveness, and he's the types of guy that fires your team up. But I want to tell, just before we move on to our next segment, back to the quiet eye thing of putting. One of the ways I learned about this was through Fred Shoemaker and the exercise that we referred to earlier called the retinal after image. So how you do it is you just fix your gaze on a part of the ball. It could be, say, a couple of dimples where the sun is coming off of, or the T in Titleist or TaylorMade or something, and you just keep your eyes on that. You hit the putt, but you keep your eyes in that same spot where they were, whether it be the dimples or the T's, whatever. And as you talked about earlier, you see an after image. It's usually like a gray circle. And that was one of the first exercises I did with Al Martin when he came to me.
Yeah.
And because he was just this bundle of nerves, he was so anxious about his putting. And we started to do this exercise, and he was so, well, amazed, astounded, like, holy shit, I can putt without thinking all this stuff. And as he did it, he just found that his whole sort of system quieted down.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just, it's a revelation to most people that they don't have to think, accelerate, keep my head down, on and on and on. And that in fact, when you hold the gaze like that, to come back to the quiet eye, quiet mind, you quiet everything down, and your body can do this. As you experience, you don't necessarily make every putt, but you just tend to hit the ball more solid, and it feels more satisfying, and your pace control becomes that much better. The ball just tends to just always be around that whole, if it doesn't go in, you leave yourself an easy tap in.
So I had this conversation with my buddy Grant McDougall, who's a big fan of the show and one of my best buddies, and he lives in New Brunswick, representing Riverside Golf and Country Club, the Riverside Club, 125-year-old, gem in just outside of St. John. And he was telling me, we were talking, he was on the way to playing a round together on Monday at historic Cedar Brae, great golf course. We were just talking about it. He was a little bit up, kind of bugging, his putting was bugging him, and he was asking me about the lab putter that I have, and, was he going to get a new putter? And I said, well, we'll have a look at it, when we get out there. And I sort of forgot about it. And then I remembered, oh, yeah, this 3-second thing that Al, and then, sort of through Tim, I said, just try it. And as luck would have it, I think the first time he tried it was either the second or third hole. He sinks like a 22-foot putt. Well, of course, now he's hooked.
You got it, man.
And I always, whenever I give him these little tips, I go, I'm about to tell you something that's going to change your life. But he putted so well for the rest of the round. About 3 or 4 holes later, he's like, I don't need a new putter. You don't. No, you just need to make more, and you just hit it. You hit the whatever nail on the head. The point of what Tim said is the most important one is you'll make more solid contact, and that leads to better pace control, and better pace control leads to tap ins for pars and bogeys, and less 3 putts. That's really all you're hoping to have is less 5-footers coming back or 4.5-footers short. You just want to get your pace in and around the hole. But I'm telling you, folks, when you watch golf, after you hear this, count. Watch their last look and how long they take before they hit it. It's weird to me. How did I not notice that? I'm a nerd. I should notice that. I didn't.
It's funny, how much stuff there is that we kind of like you smite the forehead going, really? I'm that much into this nonsense, and I never picked up on that before.
And by the way, I found it worked for almost all my shots.
Yep, exactly.
Almost. I started doing it. I said to Al a few holes later, I said, have you noticed that I'm doing it with my longer shots? He goes, yeah. Because I also tend to take my practice swing, one last look at the hole and then go. Now, I don't see this. I've been watching players. There's more of a pause than I just described. It's not always 3 seconds, but I started putting a couple of second beat before I took the club back. And again, smoother swings, a little bit better contact. I don't know. There's got to be something to it. And as you said, it's all those things and nervous systems and all that stuff. It's definitely making a difference.
It speaks to the brilliance of your body. It really does. And what your body, obviously the brain and everything starts in the brain, but it's more almost not necessarily, I don't have the right wording for it, not reptilian brain, but the part of you that just, reaches for a coffee cup and your elbow goes out and your fingers spread and then they come in and they contact and they go. I mean, you do stuff like this all through your day. And the reason is that your brain works on repetition and it builds these skills. Because if you had to think about everything you do, you'd be exhausted within 5 minutes of being awake.
Oh yeah.
So your brain can just do all this stuff, but we get in the way. It's that cliche. You stay out of your own way. And I think what the quiet eyes things does, that little 3-second count, it just allows your brain to get focused on, oh right, here's the task, here's the intention, go. And the brain, the thing about coaching I find is, every year I do this, I learn how gifted people are. Even people who don't have a history of athletics can do some amazing things. But maybe we can use this GSL as our segue into the next piece, is that they don't trust themselves. They have a belief system that I suck, I'm unathletic, I'm doing it wrong, I need to be fixed. And none of that is true. It's all just an effing story. And they actually can do some amazing things.
I will tell you that my brain, the way it works, and obviously I think about golf a lot, in case I wasn't the parents. I think about it quite a bit. And I've caught myself recently, my perception of how I'm playing, and I think this is universal. I think our perception of how we are really playing versus the reality of it. I mean, my perception is that I've had some pretty tough rounds and I've made some big numbers. And by the way, I have another big number story.
Yay. It's like the new segment on the show on Swing Thoughts.
By the way,
number.
A big number story. By the way, Keegan Bradley is currently ninth in the Ryder Cup standing. So he's currently on the team.
Yeah, wow.
And that's not likely to change. Who's a surprise? Harris English.
Yeah.
Harris English is currently ranked 10th.
I'd love to see him make the team. Yeah.
Well,
it's time for him to move in. It's time for him to move into his, we'll call it winning years, whatever.
Yeah, I mean he's a good player, but so I misspoke. The top 6 guys that finished, that the guy in 6th place is Justin Thomas. They're automatically on the team. The next 6 are either what do they call it? Captain's choices,
captain's picks.
Yeah. So there you go.
When do they pick the team? Is it after? It's a couple of weeks after the Open Championship, which is the last major.
Yeah, it's something in August. Yeah, or late. It's either after the Open Championship or the FedEx Cup. I think they do it after the FedEx Cup now because they don't want to take. Well, it doesn't matter. So yes, I've got another anatomy of a 10. I made another 10 in a tournament. But I'll get to that because it'll be part of this. I think our perception, I think golfers' perception of the state of their game is skewed. I'll tell you why I say that because, you've talked to me. We've spoken on the show, and we've also talked privately. And
sharing vulnerably.
That's right. And so if somebody said, hey, how's Howard playing? You'd go, well, doesn't sound like he's playing very well. Because I'm basing that on the results of a few rounds, not the overall picture. So I'm going to give you my last 6 scores, and 5 of these are in tournaments. 75, 84, 71, 77, 82, 76. Only one of those scores, 76, wasn't in a tournament. The other 5 were. Okay. So if you sort of average that out, it's not bad. And but all I can think of is the 82 and the 84 are how I'm playing, not the 71, not the 75. The 77 was in the first round of the Senior Club Championship. I was in 6th place, so didn't play great, but didn't play poorly. didn't make any really big numbers. But I think that's universal for a lot of golfers, that their opinions of how they're playing are based on a small sample size versus sort of an overall trending. Your thoughts?
It comes back to survival brain. Your brain's number one job is to keep you alive. So it's always looking for, come back to this word, threats and seeking danger, because if you don't look out for danger, prepare for it, avoid it, you die.
Yeah.
So that's why we tend to be negatively wired. You could go out to nice, partly cloudy day. Why isn't it partly sunny?
Yeah.
You know, we just tend to be that way because that system of the way our brain works has kept the species alive, but it doesn't necessarily serve us. And most of the time, it just plays into a story. Oh, I shot 84. Oh, I guess I'm inconsistent. Oh, I got to shore up this part of
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
game. And then the same guy shoots 71.
I know.
Same person.
Yeah, I mean that explains it. The brain's need to seek negativity as a way to survive. But like in preparation for today, I started thinking about like I really have been feeling like I just not really playing that great, and yet other than a few rounds that are say an outlier based on weather and whatever, but I'm basically one more score away from where I have been in terms of my handicap. Like right now, it's 2 point something, 2.1 or 2. So I'm one score away from being at like a 1.5, which is kind of around where it's been since the course I play at changed their course rating. Like I was a solid 0, 0.6, 0.7, and then our rating became lower. So now the scores I just mentioned, like 3 years ago, the differentials would have been better in terms of they were better scores. And I sort of looked at that and I thought I really do have to change the way I think of my game, because it isn't as bad as I have been thinking it is, or I have been feeling bad about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but here's why I'm going to just challenge you a bit. Instead of thinking about your game, I think it's about how you feel about it.
Oh yeah.
And that seems like a nuance, but it's understanding what's at work in terms of the feelings. And this comes back to our conversation last week in terms of like you go into these qualifiers recently, and there's just this kind of we call it angst that you
Yeah.
feel in your chest and in your stomach, this unease that you have. And so it's coming to grips where that starts really in terms of the how you start to kind of unravel these things is I don't have any great secrets for you to making it go away, but the first thing to do is to embrace and feel what's actually happening, to actually really feel it. And it's a cliche, but it's a cliche because it's true. What we resist persists. And if we try and make this stuff go away, whether it be in business or relationships,
Yeah.
something's not right. Well, we'll just drink or we'll overwork and make it go away. It doesn't go away. It just gets worse, actually. So, but it's actually feeling what's going on. And as a society, we hate that shit. We don't want to feel bad. We don't want to. So we avoid it, we numb it, we ignore it, we get distracted. But the more that it doesn't mean you wallow in your sadness or let your anger go crazy or, go in the fetal position in shame. But when you start to just feel what's going on, you start to get also a cognitive sense on what it feels like and what's actually going on in the stories behind it.
I love all that, and I don't really have anything to add to that part, but I will say this. I've been feeling pretty good about things recently in terms of my life. It feels good, and I felt I got some perspective from talking to you and just some sort of looking at my results realistically. Yeah, it's disappointing not to qualify again for the senior am, and I was a little bit, but I did have a little bit of a bit of a mini epiphany. Again, I mentioned Grant my buddy. I've played a lot of golf with Grant over the last couple of years. And he came to watch me play the last 9 holes of the club championship on Sunday, where I shot 45 in the first 9 holes, including another 10. It turned out to be it only turned out to be an 8. But I'm going to tell you what he said to me after. But first, let me explain how a guy like me can make a 10. Because, and this is really where I've had a bit of a revelation, which is I know strategically what I'm about to tell you. If I were caddying for myself, or you were caddying for me, or he was, or Paul was, I would have never made a 10. Even though I really thought I had worked out the right thing to do. So it's a par 5. I've got, it's the 4th hole of the day of the tournament on Sunday. So it's the 4th hole, the 4th hole I played, and I've already made a double bogey. It was a kind of a shitty double bogey. I was in a bunker, took me a couple to get out, whatever it was. I'm at this point in the round. I'm 3 over for the day. I made a par, a double bogey, and a bogey. And this is where your brain and you would say your story gets in the way. 2 guys I'm playing with crushed their drives. And they've got like, one guy had like 180 and on a par 5, the other guy had like 190. And I hit a pretty good drive, but it went down the wrong side of the hole and it stopped versus kind of running out. Now I've got 215 to the hole. No problem for me. We're downwind. And I had my girlfriend showing a caddy, and I said out loud, I said, here's what I'm going to do. Here's why I'm hitting this shot. I know what the carry is. I have this, no problem. I will hit this shot. But the ball, and one thing I didn't say out loud was the ball was below my feet. And from a technical aspect, when the ball's below your feet, you need to keep some I call it sponginess, but you need to keep some flex in your knees through the ball because the ball's a bit further away from you. And if you pull up, you're going to thin it, which is what I did. Into a hazard, and the hazard's playable. They recently cut it all down. So I saw my ball. So I go in there, and it's a difficult shot, but I get it out of the hazard, just short of the green, on in 4, and life's great. And I go to mark my ball, and it's the wrong ball. Now, you want to talk about a Tim O'Connor awareness exercise. Only 3 holes earlier, we identified our balls. I'm playing a number 3 ball. It's a Pro V. Sorry, TaylorMade. Anyway, it's a number 3 Pro V with my markings on it. But then I get in the hazard, and I'm so flummoxed by what I've just done that I see my ball, and I don't see the markings, but I see the ball turned up. I think it's the only one. It's got to be my ball. It never even occurred to me. But guess what? It's a Titleist 2. You'd think I would have had what you would say, the presence of mind, the wherewithal. So of course I got to go back and drop, and I've hit this ball twice, so I erroneously think it's a 2-shot penalty for every one you've hit. It's not. But at the time, I didn't know that. So I have to put down another 10 on my card. And I can tell you, like, it didn't piss me off. It didn't, I wasn't mad. And I made a really good swing on the next tee. It was a par 3. I had a beautiful shot, 2-putted for par. But it's my 4th time this spring that I've done that now. Where
10, you mean?
I've made a 10 or a 9. And they all come down to strategic errors based on emotional instability. Please interrupt me and say something about that. Isn't that crazy? Strategic errors based on emotional, being out of sync emotionally.
Well, that's just the way it rolls, unfortunately. Most of the things that we do, that mistakes we make in all parts of our life, is that we are emotionally unstable, just like you said. This sounds dramatic, but jails are full of people who did things when they're emotionally unstable.
Yeah. The prisons are filled with people that made 10s on par 5s.
Exactly. Yes, and they should be. No. But that's, I mean, we say the wrong thing to somebody, we're upset, and something pops out of our mouth. Oh, shit. And you'll never get that back.
Yeah.
Or, you just make a decision on something. Now, it doesn't mean we have to sit and meditate on a cushion for 5 minutes before we do anything, but it's really, I just think we give ourselves the best chance if we just able to pause and ground, whatever that means. If for you, it could be breathe, look around, just talk to somebody and say, "What do you think?" I think sometimes that's one of the best things you could do is just ask somebody, even if you have to yell across a fairway. You wouldn't believe what's happening here, and they'll
Mhm.
go, "What?" And you can just talk it through a little bit. But in many ways, it's just kind of turning down the thermostat, as you said before, getting more emotionally neutral. But I'll come back to my favorite quote. It really is one of my favorite quotes. It's between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. So it's what we do in that space. And sometimes it's just, it could just be taking a breath. It's just pausing. And then we, rather than connect our our emotions and the thoughts that are triggered by those emotions, we're able to just kind of go, ah, what's the best thing here?
So the reason I told the story the way I did, that I'd already made a double and I made a bogey and the guys had hit good drives, because those are all the things that other golfers listening, whether you admit it or not, subconsciously or not, those are some of the things that we think of. Why, they're already doing well. I've got to make
Yes.
up something, or they hit good drives. I did too. Why isn't mine? I even said that to Shona. I said, I thought I hit a pretty good drive, but I knew I'd hit it left of the speed slot of that hole, like
Yep.
another 20 yards, 15 yards right of it. And I'm going to be, then now I'm going to have 185, 190 to a green, and it's not, then it wouldn't even be an issue. But back to your idea of making the choice. Had you dropped me in that, had I come out of the sky into that hole in that situation without having played the other three holes or knowing where those other two drives were, I never would have gone for that green, because the lie was just a little bit iffy. If it had been a flat lie, I'm going to go for it almost every time, because it's well within my ability. That's a 225-yard club for me. I could have easily carried the hazard, especially downwind. But if I had seen that lie, I would have said, and I could hear my buddy Paul in my ear saying, "You don't need a 3 here. You just don't need to make fucking 10. How about that? How about you don't make 10? Because what I would normally do, and also part of the circumstance is that hazard has been unplayable the entire time I've played at that golf course. They've recently cut it down, and I recently saw somebody find their ball and play out of it. So that was also in my mind, because
Yeah, yeah.
up until a week ago, I never would have gone for it. I would have hit my wedge, hit my third shot on with the same club, 2 putted for par, 3 putted for bogey, all scores better than 10. So what I was proud of, though, is I made the 10 again, and I took me a little bit to get my equilibrium back. And I even said to Shona at one point, she was in the cart, and I said, the hardest thing to do in this game is to keep trying when, it's when you've had she's, when you see me do that, it's hard to keep on trying on every shot. But I also know that, and I say it all the time, eventually everybody's handicap shows up. And eventually I knew mine would too. And I shot 45, 37 to shoot 82,
Nice.
including birdieing the last hole. So I was fully
Yeah, yeah.
engaged once I kind of got over the latest goat hump to the face or whatever, like once you've made a 10, it's weird for a while. It just is.
Yeah. A lot of times, I think what happens is that we have hopes and expectations for whether it be casual round or tournament, and there's some tightness that goes with that.
Yeah.
And then something happens, and often it's not so great. So there might be some anger or frustration, and then just things chill out. And particularly over 4 hours, 4.5 hours of a golf round, that's a long time. And so a disaster that befalls us on the front nine, by the time we're in the middle of the back, it's 2 hours ago,
Yeah.
and we can get over that.
And just for you other golf nerds, it turned out that I didn't make a 10. I ended up making an 8 because you can only get penalized once for playing the wrong ball.
Cool. I'm glad you.
So and I found that out a couple holes later, and it was funny because not that I was over it, but I was literally over on the next swing. But when I found out a couple holes later that I was only an 8, I was kind of like, well, I triple bogey. I mean, that's, that's not bad. And I need to finish this off. So the epiphany I had with Grant's help was, and this is what he said to me. He said, somebody who is as good as you are can only make a 10 based on a strategic mistake. That's it.
Yep.
There's I mean, all the big numbers I've made this spring, looking back on them, including that one, were all errors of strategy based on an emotional response. And thank you for your quote again, because that's exactly it. There's a point between stimulus and response where there's a chance to not make a 10. And I've said it to guys I've worked with that, in the anatomy of a big number, there is a point where you had a choice to not do that. And I am now going to dedicate myself to helping others not make any fucking 10s. Anyway, that's all I have to say. Thank you very much for your patience.
Oh, man. Oh, golly.
I reached out to Lawrence Applebaum, who's the CEO of Golf Canada. I had a chance encounter with him in Mexico. Hopefully he's going to be on the show. Coming up in the next little while, we're going to do a show with, what's her name again?
Erica Larkin. She's really interesting swing instructor, all kinds of videos. Check her out. Carl Morris, friend of show, and also interesting woman, Debbie McConnell. She's got a show called Tee to Green on Sirius XM. She actually reached out to us, and so we're going to do a little home and home thing. So that'll be fun. That'll be coming up. So yeah, some cool people to talk to coming up on.
You're cool people to talk to. Tim O'Connor, o'connorgolf.ca. That's how you get a hold of Tim. And of course, this program is produced by the Humble and Fred Show. Until next week, all the best, and stop making 10s.
When you hear the music ring.
Okay.